Malcgoolie here with the episode that everybody's been asking for this channel for a while. I'm sorry that I have not been trying to avoid this. I have been planning for this for a while, but things happen. So without further ado, here we go. Episode 3 on how to book Dean Ambrose. Now, Dean Ambrose here is a little bit of a case for me. I am a fan of Dean Ambrose. But you know what? It's a possibility that Dean might not come back till SummerSlam. So this is what we're going to do if we're going to book Dean Ambrose to another level. We're going to need some help with the following superstars. We're going to need the help of Samoa Joe. We're going to need the help of The Miz. We're going to need the help of Zelina Vega, Andres Giannomis. And the fifth, this piece, will be his wife, Renee Young. Why do I need all 5 of these? Let me get down to business. So before I start with how to book, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. So for now, let's get down to episode 3, how to book Dean Ambrose. You know what? Let's start it off with Money in the Bank. We know Samoa Joe's in it. We know The Miz is in it. Let's say between that match, it's between, let's say it's between Finn Balor, Braun Strowman, The Miz, and Samoa Joe. With Miz, Finn Balor, and Samoa Joe just completely taking Braun Strowman out of the equation, now it's down to those 3. With it being said and done, for Money in the Bank, for this fantasy booking, I would have Samoa Joe win. Not Samoa Joe win, but just have The Miz win the Money in the Bank. I think what we do here for Miz, because there's another match that I would love to book sooner down the road. So let's just have The Miz win Money in the Bank. So on the next night on SmackDown, Renee Young comes in with an interview with Samoa Joe saying that you were so close, so close. And then, Samoa Joe does his typical heel, his gimmick. Because everybody loves Samoa Joe. Let's let Samoa Joe do his thing. He just basically belittles Renee Young on all the question he asks. And then Samoa Joe flips the script and asks Renee Young, how's Dean Ambrose? Oh, wait, that's right. Dean Ambrose is not here because I broke his arm. So that's what we're going to go with here. Having Samoa Joe basically teasing and just basically belittling Renee. Because, Renee and Dean are married in real life. So that's how you would do it. You can make that for the next rivalry there. So I think the next pay-per-view, if I'm not mistaken, for July, would probably be Battleground. So at Battleground, we would have, Samoa Joe basically just doing, having a match with, let's say it was somebody like, let's say AJ Styles for the WWE Championship. Now, let's say that AJ Styles. Him and AJ Styles, they have a really great match here. And you know what? I'm going to do it. I will have Samoa Joe defeat AJ Styles for the WWE Championship. So on more SmackDown, you see Samoa Joe, he's the new WWE Champion. He's basically bragging to everyone in the back, typical Samoa Joe. And then he gets to Renee Young talking about Dean, until he says something real horrible about Dean, to the point Renee just snaps. Now, we've seen Renee get physical with a wrestler before, and that was with The Miz, if you can remember that, about 2 years ago? And she slapped the ever-living shit out of The Miz. Here she slaps Joe, but here she has a little bit of a pause moment, like she's scared, just realize what she just done. Samoa Joe, with that anger and with that Samoan scary look on his face. Now, I know WWE will not condemn men-women violence, but what we will do here is at least have where it looks like Joe is going to hurt Renee. Like, he grabs Renee by the hair, and then out of nowhere you hear Dean Ambrose theme. He's running down to the ring, and you know what? They're in Cleveland, Ohio, on SmackDown Live, Cleveland, Ohio. I know Dean Ambrose is a part of Raw, but let's just say that Dean decided to go to SmackDown to get revenge on Samoa Joe. So there you have Dean Ambrose basically coming down in Cleveland, Ohio, just basically going down there, and it's Ohio. Everyone's hyped. They see Dean Ambrose, and Dean Ambrose is taking it to Joe. Then you have Joe basically running from the back, getting away from Dean, and then you can have Renee Young and Dean. They hug it out in the ring. So next week on SmackDown, Dean Ambrose comes. He cuts a big promo. He's doing his typical Dean, saying, "It's great to be back, baby." So with that, you can have him saying, "I only came back here for one reason only," and that's is to beat the living hell out of Samoa Joe. For weeks, you talk about, "Oh, you laid me out. You done this to me. You did this to me. I haven't forgotten about what you did to me." So you know what, Joe? I'm going to make your life a living hell the same way you made my life and my wife's life a living hell. So Samoa Joe comes out saying, they banter back and forth. And, you can have the part like Dean being there saying, "Hey, you're such a big, tough guy. Why don't you put the title on the line?" Samoa Joe says, "No." Here comes Paige coming out saying, like, "Dean Ambrose, you haven't been wrestling in a while, but here is SmackDown. You have to earn your opportunity. So tonight you will face off against AJ Styles. But tonight it'll be like a triple threat match." Sorry, I'm stuttering a little bit. A triple threat match between Dean Ambrose, AJ Styles, and Shinsuke Nakamura. Dean Ambrose, he'll win this match. Dirty D's on Nakamura. Then at SummerSlam, we'll get the match at SummerSlam. Dean Ambrose versus Samoa Joe. So with weeks of building, Dean Ambrose is basically, talking about what he's going to do to Joe at SummerSlam. Samoa Joe, on the other hand, is talking about, like, he just brings up a montage of Dean going through the physical therapy about his broken arm and how about with Renee Young and all. So when it comes down to it at SummerSlam, the WWE Championship is on the line, and I will have this as the main event. It all depends if Brock Lesnar decides to show up and defend the belt. But my fantasy booking, Samoa Joe, Dean Ambrose will end the show. So with that being said, the match goes on for 15 minutes, like a 15-minute match. Like it's damn near beating the hell out of each other. Well, the referee just lost full control at the final 2 minutes, and he calls it a no contest. Samoa Joe keeps the belt. I don't want Joe losing the belt at SummerSlam and with Dean coming back like that. No. With they both just staying out with backstage. They do every carnage all the way backstage. Referees, security, superstars are all from the SmackDown brand are trying to break these two apart. But Dean Ambrose, he's just wailing on Joe. Joe's wailing on Dean to the point where they go into the parking lot. And then you have like this big, huge set where you could have Dean Ambrose, because Dean Ambrose is a lunatic fringe. We got to let Dean Ambrose do crazy shit. Let Dean Ambrose run over Samoa Joe, try to kill Samoa Joe by running him over. Or just basically run over with his car. Or just, actually, no. Samoa Joe gets into his car, and then you can have Dean Ambrose, like with a truck or something, smashes his truck onto Samoa Joe's car with Joe in it. And you can somehow, with that. And then the next night on SmackDown, Shane McMahon and Paige, they talk about what happened at SummerSlam. So they make a match, because we're in August now, we're in September. We will have it will be Samoa Joe and Dean Ambrose one-on-one and basically a Falls Count Anywhere match. That way you can have more with that. We get down to it, I believe September's pay-per-view would probably be, I don't know, Night of Champions. So we go to that match. another maybe 15-minute match, and then it looks like Dean he's getting his ass kicked by Samoa Joe. Just literally getting his ass destroyed by Joe. And you can have like Renee Young come out there like pleading with Joe to stop beating the hell out of her husband. Joe just looking at Renee and just screaming out no, just basically about to hit him with the coquina clutch to choke out Dean Ambrose. Chokes out Dean, and then the match ends. Renee Young comes into the ring and tries to choke out, still has Dean Ambrose in the coquina clutch. You had Renee Young trying to pull Joe off of Dean. And then when Joe, he does let go of the hold, but then he looks at Renee. And looks at her hard. And then if they do that, even though they won't, you can have basically, because it's PG or whatever, just have, matter of fact, screw it. You get heel heat with Samoa Joe. Have him spit on Renee Young. And also pushing her down right next to Dean Ambrose. That's how you get out with that. Joe's still the champion. And then the next night on SmackDown, Dean Ambrose is hot. He is on a fury. Renee Young is with him by his side in a fury. They ask Shane and Paige where is Samoa Joe? This is not over. It will never be. This is over. He has crossed the line. This is personal. Shane McMahon is trying his best to calm down Dean, to the point Dean does more loony shit and he will get lunatic fringe and he gets banned from the building that night. But earlier on that night, Samoa Joe has a match with Daniel Bryan. And Daniel Bryan and Joe, they have their match on SmackDown Live. Joe beats Bryan. And then out of nowhere, the cameraman, Joe cuts a promo to the cameraman talking about Dean Ambrose, talking about Renee Young, until Joe turns his back to the crowd. The cameraman takes off his hat, takes off his shirt, and a little mask because they can't really see him. It's Dean Ambrose. Dean Ambrose throws a camera at Samoa Joe, and then the fight escalates on from there. So the next week on SmackDown, a match has been announced because we're in September, we were in September, now we're in October, for Hell in a Cell. The main event will be Samoa Joe defending the WWE Championship against Dean Ambrose in a Hell in the Asylum match. Now I know it's like Hell in a Cell, but think about this. The Ambrose Asylum mixed in with a Hell in a Cell, where weapons are basically everywhere on attached to the goddamn cell, like the kendo stick, a chair, a baseball bat, barbed wire, everything imaginable that you can think of is into that match. This match, however, will be at least 30 to 35 minutes long. And by hook or by crook, for old time's sake, Dean Ambrose, he pinned Dirty Deeds Samoa Joe through thumbtacks. 1, 2, 3. Dean Ambrose gets his revenge on Samoa Joe, and he is now the new WWE champion. But wait! When Dean is celebrating, we hear this theme. Awesome! Remember, The Miz won the Money in the Bank. He rushes through, hits Dean, who's starting to get, from his celebration. Dean, he cashes in his Money in the Bank, The Miz. Miz with the skull crushing finale. 1, 2, 3. Miz leaves Hell in a Cell with the WWE Championship. So the next night on SmackDown, Dean comes out saying that this is supposed to be a celebration for me. And then he talks about basically Hell in a Cell, what happened with him and Joe. And he said, as soon as I was about to celebrate, here comes The Miz. And he does this Hollywood thing, just weasel his way, cashes in Money in the Bank. I don't blame Miz, because I did the same thing when I beat Seth Rollins at Money in the Bank. Now I see how everybody's felt with that sire. But Dean Ambrose is entitled to a rematch. He will get his rematch. Samoa Joe is entitled to a rematch as well. So there'll be a triple threat match. So for November, I think November is where Survivor Series. So it's Survivor Series triple threat match. Triple threat match between you have Samoa Joe versus The Miz versus Dean Ambrose, triple threat match for the WWE Championship. But later on, when we get to that pay-per-view and whatnot, we get, Andre Cien Almas. Now, here's where Andre Cien Almas and Selena Vega come in. They do, interviews, and, Selena Vega, talks about, tries to belittle Renee Young and all that every time, and then Andre Cien Almas say, we can beat any... Well, Selena Vega basically is talking for Andre Cien Almas, saying they can beat anybody, they can beat anyone, they want to make an impact, and they're feeling like, ever since they've been to SmackDown Live, they haven't got no real competition. So when we get to Survivor Series, it looks like Dean Ambrose is going to win back the WWE Championship. He was about to Dirty D The Miz, but out of nowhere, here comes Selena Vega distracting the referee. Dean is looking at Selena Vega, but then out of nowhere, Andre Cien Almas hit that hammerlock DDT. Miz grabs the cover, 1, 2, 3. The Miz retains the WWE Championship. And then you have a new rivalry with Dean Ambrose and Andre Cien Almas. That goes to tables, ladders, and chairs. And this one here will bring out more to it when you bring with TLC. Like, it looks like at TLC, they basically, let's have their match become like just a regular chairs match. And every time when it looks like Dean Ambrose is about to get the upper hand at TLC against Andre Cien Almas, here comes Selena Vega. Until Renee Young has enough, basically coming to the aid of her husband and spearing down Selena Vega, and they both have a cat fight with the two women. Andre Cien Almas pulls Renee Young off of Selena, and then it looks like Dean Ambrose is going to hit the dirty deeds, but it gets countered into a hammerlock DDT. And 1, 2, 3, you have Andre Cien Almas with a big victory beating Dean Ambrose. So when you get to that SmackDown there, you can have more shenanigans with Dean Ambrose, Andre Cien Almas, and then you have Selena Vega saying like this. Selena Vega basically saying a challenge, saying Andre Cien Almas and herself at the Royal Rumble face off against Dean Ambrose and Renee Young. Renee Young, I know Renee Young can't wrestle, but we can have segments on how Dean Ambrose and some of Renee's friends like Naomi or the Usos, they're basically teaching Renee. We can have segments with them. And then when it comes to it, you'll have Selena Vega basically saying and just teasing Renee Young, saying, I have wrestled all over the world, how Renee will never beat me. And me and Andre Cien Almas will reign supreme and prove once and for all that our time, we are the ones here for SmackDown Live. It's basically typical heel. But when we get to the match, Dean and Renee, they do get the upper hand in it. We get to see Renee do some things like a DDT, maybe like a powerbomb, a Hurricane Rana on Selena Vega. What the finish I would have for that match is that it looks like Selena Vega and Andre Cien Almas about to do their hammerlock DDT onto both Renee and Dean, but they counter it into both couples' dirty deeds, and then 1, 2, 3, Dean Ambrose and Renee Young, they beat Selena Vega and Andre Cien Almas. Now, I did say that I would stop at the Royal Rumble, but here's a little bit of a bonus. For WrestleMania, we have to let Dean do something for WrestleMania. So, on Raw, you have Stephanie and Kurt Angle saying that since I know Survivor Series, but let's say Raw will destroy SmackDown in its WrestleMania card. We have the better matches. So we challenge SmackDown to an individual one-on-one match at WrestleMania. And who do they represent? Raw, they pick Seth Rollins. Now, for the next night on SmackDown, Paige and Shane, they accept the challenge. And who they pick Dean Ambrose. So that way, you can have, at WrestleMania, Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. The match that should have happened last year, but couldn't because Dean Ambrose got hurt. So that's the way you can fix that storyline. And then I would probably have Seth win it and then have Dean Ambrose jump from SmackDown to Raw. And then you can have that rivalry between Seth and Dean. Or you can go the Shield reunion again. Whatever, so have you. And that's how I would do it for Dean Ambrose. I would book Dean Ambrose. So here we make Dean Ambrose WWE champion. We get to see Andre Cien Almas and Selena Vega having a really good, intense rivalry with Dean. Maybe like a 2-month program with Samoa Joe gets heel heat. The Miz is WWE champion. And I will get to The Miz for another how-to book for WrestleMania. Him as his opponent, The Miz versus Daniel Bryan, and how WWE should book that. Maybe that could be another episode on how to book. But anyway, that's how I would do it for Dean Ambrose, guys. Let me know in the comment section below on who you want for me to do a how-to book. Which superstar you want me to. But in the meantime, there is a certain how-to book I would love to do. It doesn't even have to do with WWE or Impact. This one here has to do with a 2006-2007 company, that wrestling show that MTV put on for 10 episodes and it failed. And that was Wrestling Society X. I am thinking about doing a Wrestling Society X how to book, and how that company dropped off so bad from a company that just lasted one season because nobody was watching it, and to making them not like a mega company, but just making them like an independent scene wrestling show, just like how like Lucha Underground, how like Lucha Underground is. I think I could do that for how to book, but only time will tell. But let me know in the comment section below on how you guys would you guys like to see that, or would you guys like me to do another wrestler? Just let me know in the comment section below. I am Malcgoolie. I will see you guys all next time. Thank you, and please remember to stay safe. Love all you guys. You guys are the main reason why I keep this channel going. Until next time, I will see you all next time.